Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Healthy Waves, the live group podcast where we dive deep into the diverse topics with the leading experts offering insights, discussions to enhance your mind, body, and the spirit. I'm your host Avik, and together we will explore the transformative practices and the innovative ideas to help you navigate the life's um, challenges and thrive. So let's ride these healthy waves together and uncover the freedom of our remarkable guest and the wisdom of our remarkable guests here. So today we'll be talking about a great topic, which is about rebuilding the resilience, where mindfulness, nutrition for the brain, power of the spiritual practice. But before we do that, I would quickly love to introduce you all with our special guests. So I'll start with Clementine Moss. So she is the founder and drummer of Zipperella, with a flourishing solo career as a singer and the songwriter. So she is also a spiritual counselor, depth hypnosis practitioner, and the author of Bonham to Buddha, and also and back the slow enlightenment of the hard rock drummer. So she brings a unique blend of rock and roll energy and spiritual insights to our discussions, definitely. So welcome to the show, Clementine.
Thank you so much, Avik. Thank you.
Lovely. And also, I'd love to introduce you to our lovely guest, Sally Holden. So she is a kinesiologist, intuitive life coach, and Amazon best-selling author. Number one Amazon's best-selling author with over like 14 years of experience. She has empowered thousands of women internationally to overcome the burnout. Yes, the word which we even on a daily basis we hear, right? So reclaim their health and create the lives that they love. So she brings a wealth of knowledge on the wellness and the transformation. So welcome to the show, Sally.
Thanks so much, Avi. It's great to be here.
Lovely, great. So thank you so much for joining us today, and definitely our topic today is very great. So I'll quickly start with uh, Sally. Like, you have helped like many women overcome the burnout. So what, according to you, are the common causes of the burnout? Like, how we can prevent it? It's a $1 million question.
Absolutely. I think there's compounding factors that can often happen. I think definitely how we've grown up in childhood and some of the beliefs that we've taken on that were either projected upon us or who we've believed that we needed to be in order to be loved and accepted in the world and fit in and valued. And often one of the deepest links is that our value and productivity is actually linked to our self-worth. And we can see an immediate problem, obviously, if that occurs, simply because when we're trying to rest or when we're trying to take time out or take care of our body or put our needs equal to everybody else's needs, we can end up feeling worth less. So when so many of our six human needs, such as even feeling like we're contributing, we're making a difference, love and connection, are all deeply tied to our value or our productivity and how much we get done in a day or even how much we help people, it can really make a difference to how we feel like we can't stop, we've got to keep going. There's generally a very strong theme of high A-type achiever, push, go, got to achieve. And again, that's where, our worthiness may be tied to our success. All of those sorts of things as well can make it really hard to stop. But also in a lot of cultures as well, emotional repression, denial of our own needs, disassociation as a way of a coping mechanism can definitely contribute to those factors as well, meaning we don't always pick up on the cues of our hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. So that means that people are in a dire situation, which was certainly my experience, before they actually realise how bad things have actually got. And so that can make it harder to pick up on those cues earlier to be able to prevent burnout. And the longer somebody's in burnout, the harder it is, or the longer it takes to heal from burnout as well.
Lovely. Great, great. Thank you so much, Sally, for sharing this, because this is something which we often hear on a daily basis. So that's really help. So I'll come to you, Clementine. So your book uses the I mean, your career, like music career, as a metaphor for the spiritual practice. So if you can share or maybe elaborate on that connection.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been meditating and playing drums. Drums are my primary instrument. I've been doing both of those things. And I went to my first 10-day silent retreat, and I started my playing drums in the same year, about 30 some odd years ago. Um, and for a long time, I saw my contemplative practice as one thing in my life and my music career in the other, as the other thing in my life. We think about contemplative practice, we're sitting on the meditation mat, and we're understanding that it can be quite difficult and challenging. It's an internal kind of difficulty and challenge. And then when I'm going out in the world and playing shows and loading equipment and setting up the drums and playing in front of people and having to drive a lot and all of that stuff, that's very external. So I had these two sides of myself. And as time has kind of gone on in my life, and as I started writing about this, I realized that, both things are my life. And I learned the same lessons on the meditation mat about focus and about allowing what is to be present without trying to change it, allowing myself to be aware of that wider awareness behind my front attention, where I'm kind of aware of everything at the same time, how that develops the more we develop our front attention,
Mm,
how those lessons were the same ones that I would gain on behind the drums. When you're playing drums, all five limbs are going. I'm listening to the other instruments. It's kind of my awareness both has to be precise. I have to be thinking about, each hit as a precise thing. And yet I'm also very aware of that wider awareness in which my attention is sitting. And when I do that and I focus more on that background awareness rather than that front attention, then I let go of a lot of my anxiety, my stress about feeling like I'm going to do something wrong or thinking about what I have done wrong. And I'm
mm,
able to allow the music to move through me. And in meditation, how I feel is that I'm allowing, spirit to move through me, my connection to my higher self. And so I really, when I started writing, I realized that both of these things are the same thing. And when was studying, it's funny, Sal, that you were talking about burnout, because and in my musical career, it's very physically stressful, right? And I mean, I kind of border on being introverted and extroverted. So a lot of the the socialization, that isn't really a stress for me. It's more of the just the physical. Sometimes I have to drive 5 hours, get out, play a show, get back in the car, drive a couple more out, all of that stuff. And when I did a program with the place, I studied at a place in Berkeley, California called the Sacred Stream, run by a teacher named Isa Gucciardi. And she does a class called the Path of Service, which is addressing people who have chosen to be of service in their lives. And you do exactly what you were talking about. You go through all of those primary needs you had as a child, and then you find the ways that they were met or not met, and then you make a lot of associations between the ways that you expend your energy, often to your detriment as an adult. And when I went through that, I was like, well, I had a lovely upbringing, and I all of my needs were met, except I didn't have a lot of autonomy over my physical self. It's like it didn't matter if I didn't feel good, I had to get up and go, right? And
Yeah.
I had no say in that. And now when I look at my life, it was like a light bulb came off on, like, oh, that's exactly what I do now. I let go of all of my physical needs in service to the bigger thing, to other people's comfort, to making the show go on and all of that. So I'm fascinated by your work, and I think it's super helpful to have those insights. Yeah. So anyway, that was a lot of stuff, but yeah.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah. Yeah. So coming to Sally again. So if you can discuss like the role of kinesiology in identifying and addressing the emotional and the imbalances, the physical imbalances within that.
So explaining kinesiology is, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I got the question right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
So kinesiology is amazing as a way of like receiving feedback from our body. And it might sound a little bit strange, but when you actually have it done, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, like this is actually very accurate. So basically kinesiology uses it tests certain muscles on the body which are all related to certain meridians via the Chinese acupuncture system. So if anybody's familiar with the Chinese acupuncture system, there's energetic lines that run through the body which all relate to a physical organ within the body. There's one for the lung, one for the heart, one for the stomach, one for the spleen. There's all sorts of different meridians that go through, and certain muscles are attached to each of those meridians. So by testing certain muscles, it's like testing an electrical circuit to figure out where is the power not actually getting through. And sometimes that power may not be getting through due to an emotional trauma or something that's happened. It could be a physical blow to the body, such as a car accident or a physical injury in some way, or it could even be something nutritional that person's actually missing, that is meaning that connection is not happening to the fullest strength that it could. So this is where we can figure out where we can actually allow more life force energy to flow through the body, and we can test into the different chakra or the energy centers, as well as the different aspects of the body. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and if anybody's familiar with the auric field and things like that, and see really what's going on. And during my work with kinesiology, that was really what had me transfer into life coaching, along with the location free and lifestyle freedom that worked better for myself and my two daughters at the time. It was really realizing that every pattern of disease within the body that was presenting really does stem from an emotional and mental thought to begin with. And that was where I thought, we really need to start with the beliefs. What is the belief systems that's playing out here, or what are the thoughts that we're telling ourselves, or saying to ourselves on a regular basis, that's actually disempowering us, that's actually robbing our energy. And even at a basic level, if anybody's gone to do a workout, you're having a really rough day mentally, perhaps beating up on yourself a little bit or being hard on yourself, it's so much harder to lift weight on that particular day, or it's very unlikely we're going to hit a PB on that particular day. Whereas when we're feeling great, when we feel confident within ourselves, when we have high energy, all of those things, it's much more likely that we're going to feel a lot more successful, or find it easier, at least in the gym, or be able to extend our previous results on that. So at a really basic level, that's what kinesiology does, but it really helps to identify what is going to be most supportive to the system, to as our body as a whole, that's going to really help improve our energy and well-being.
Perfect, perfect. So also uh, for Clementine, uh, how has your experience as a rock and roll drummer influenced the approach to the spiritual counseling and the depth hypnosis?
Hmm. Well, let's see. Well, kind of like what I was talking about allowing the song to move through us, right? Allowing our spirit to move through us in those times where we're in that kind of wider awareness. When I'm working with clients as a spiritual counselor, my goal is really, in shamanic practice, it's called a hollow bone, right? So we set ourselves aside to be able to be fully in that awareness space where the work is moving through us, right? So, when I'm working with a client and I have a thought, the work that I do, we're working with altered states using a drum, right? Like a shamanic version of inducing an altered state without plant medicine. It's with the drum, with the repetitive sound of a drum. And, when I'm in that space, I am both focused, but I'm also very much in that awareness space so that I feel that the work is moving through me. So if I have a thought in there that says, what should I say next? Like a little anxiety comes into my mind, I realize I'm not where I need to be. I need to be in that bigger space of service where Clementine isn't the one who knows, right? But there is a knowing there, and my training can, same as sitting behind a drum kit, all of the practice that I've done, all of that is so that when I get on the stage, I can let go of all of those specifics and I can allow for the bigger expression. And I would say that that's a lot like working with clients, if I'm doing that right, because the modalities that I work in assumes that each person has their own knowing of their healing within them, and all I'm doing is holding space and using the training that I have to encourage them and guide them into their own knowledge, their own insights. I'm not somebody who, Clementine's life is, my life where I'm kind of, fumbling around a lot of the time. That's not who shows up. The person who shows up is the person who's able to set all of those, those swirling thoughts and emotions, and set those aside and be there present for pure service. That's the goal. So there is a kind of connection in that way for all of those years that I've done where I'm trying to myself put myself aside in order to serve the song, in order to serve the music. It sounds a little strange because we think of, performers as being very hyper in their ego. But I think all of the best performers I've known have been ones who are able to set aside um, all of their own junk in order to serve the expression that they're really looking to do. So yeah, I guess that's the way I would say it.
Okay, lovely. So great. And Sally, again, I mean, how do you incorporate the principles of the quantum physics and the metaphysics into your coaching practice?
So a lot of the work that I do is it's very similar to also what Clementine's saying as well, in really what I call the ego survival mind, which is it's trying to always maintain control and things like that, and really activate that heart energy and bring people's awareness to their emotional energy, which is really our frequency or our vibration, if we're talking into more quantum physics and law of attraction and things like that as well. So when people really get that, like in that simplified manner, that it's just my emotion, when I'm raising my emotional state, I'm also raising my frequency, I'm raising my vibration. And I think it's really helpful to understand, just the same as when water becomes a block of ice, it's so hard to change in any form. You've got to apply a lot of force and a lot of pressure to that block of ice to make any change. Whereas when we add energy to that, in the form of heat, and that becomes water, that becomes a lot more fluid and it's a lot more malleable now. Like we can apply change a lot easier in that particular way. And then, of course, when it becomes steam or gas, then that's another level of change that's actually taking place. So the things that are the densest, and often I teach people what's called the emotional guidance scale. Abraham Hicks also talks about that, which is that's another conversation as well. But it's a really powerful teaching to really understand that when we're feeling powerless, helpless, grief, even burnout, burnout often comes with a feeling of powerlessness, that I'm so exhausted, I have no energy to do the things that I need to do. And so in that, it's a very low energy, it's a very apathetic state where it takes so much effort to try and create change in our life. Whereas when we move into anger, anger still doesn't feel great, but it's a lot, has a lot more energy to it. Generally, we want to throw something or hit something, or hopefully, in a very safe way for ourselves or for others. But it's got a lot more energy attached to it, which means it's starting to put us into action. And then if we move into energies, even boredom, it's a very neutral energy. I kind of call it like, being in park in the vehicle. There's, you're not in reverse, you're not in first or second gear, but it's a very neutral energy of just being able to kind of hang out in no stress or just feeling a bit bored. And then when we move into courage and even passion, there is so much energy and there's a lot of inspired energy. Courage is the energy that actually starts to really activate that heart energy. And in doing so, we become more magnetic to what it is that we want to create. And again, at a really simple level, like if people can really understand, their thoughts that they're telling themselves, be it positive or negative, is influencing their emotional state, and their emotional state often is driving how much action or inaction or the type of action that somebody is taking, which then impacts the results that they get, which then adds back into that feedback loop of reinforcing the thoughts. So in a negative situation, if we believe we're not enough, we're not good enough, we can't do it, then that impacts our emotional energy, which generally feels very apathetic or I'm never going to get there kind of feeling, which then means we're probably not going to take a lot of action, which is going to reinforce the result of things that aren't happening, which then reinforces that belief in a negative way. The same is true, obviously, positive. So I think the more that we can really understand the nature of vibration, and particularly those denser vibrations, and Bruce Lipton in The Biology of Belief wrote a lot about that in his book, in really understanding epigenetics and how our thoughts, and Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this as well, how our thoughts actually switch on and off our genes. So it's actually not necessarily our genes that dictate our health and well-being. It's the activation, which is through the environment, which is generally through our thoughts. Our thoughts become part of that environment, as well as the environment that we're surrounding ourselves with as well. So there's so many factors, and I've experimented a ton in my life to really start to figure out what energies really support me, what help me thrive, what also help me energetically and physically within the body to maintain greater vitality and well-being, but also, what are the ones that really impact me and not necessarily in a great way. So understanding those things and how we can actually shift up that emotional guidance scale, I think, is very empowering for people and really helps to put them back in control, if that makes sense. So it was a huge learning for me. I always thought my emotions just happen to me, there's nothing I can do about them, I can't change them. And when I really started to understand how we actually create emotions through our physiology and through our focus and through the meaning that we're attaching to things, everything really changed for me quite significantly.
Wow, that's really lovely. Yeah. So so from Sally, we have got to learn about kinesiology and also about the principles of quantum physics and the metaphysics. So I'll come to you, Clementine. Like, if you can share some insights from your Vipassana meditation practice, like how it has contributed to your personal resilience. So it will also definitely be a new learning. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about Sally's explanation of energy, which I think is so powerful and helpful. And it's so funny, I work a lot with energy myself, and it's funny how the some of the energy that you think is going to be the most, empowering can often, like, for instance, anger, I find that anger, it's not a sustained energy, right? And so it's really interesting to tune into those subtleties of different frequencies and energies and see what is sustained, and in meditation, I think that we do, if we're lucky, end up finding that field of energy that I always call love, even though I know that that brings up the emotion of love, but this is really not an emotion, it's more just that underlying vibration that's holding things together, and it feels so, I call it love because it feels infinitely expansive. And I think it's really helpful to look at energy, especially when we're looking at people's relationships to see the way that other people are affecting each other. But anyway, Vipassana was incredibly transformative to me because I learned how to understand change. And because, the Vipassana that I learned was taught by a teacher named S.N. Goenka. He was from Burma and then India. And his 10-day silent retreat centers are, there's, I don't know how many, maybe close to 1,000 around the world. It's all donation based. So you go there for 10 days and it's all donation based. You get fed and housed and taught the technique. And they make it, that you're there to learn a technique. It's not particularly religious or even spirit. It doesn't have to be spiritual if that's not your bent. It's like a great gift on the planet for people to be able to learn how to really dive in and learn how to meditate, and then also the great gift of being without interaction for 10 days, without any conversation, not only even just you're living with people and you don't even want to gesture or take anybody out of their own bubble that they're in, for those 10 days. And what happens on the third day is my inner voice, all of my thoughts become one big voice, and it's just one big megaphone that is just running. And it is a great gift to just really listen. Like, what am I
Yeah.
saying to myself? What is going on here? And I was shocked at how every single thought was a judgment. And it was a judgment about how now could be like the past, or could be like something that I anticipate for the future. I'm always in forward or back. I'm never here. I'm always judging here by those places. And so then I'm never here. And when we talk about, mindfulness or be here now, I never understood that until I had that experience of realizing, like, oh, I actually am never here now. And it's not just paying attention to, how I'm eating or how there are all of those little practices that we do to kind of, just be focused and be aware, and those can be helpful. But if we look at our thoughts, we're still judging it by how it could be different. And when you sit in a Vipassana meditation, and the technique that they're teaching is to observe sensation on the body. So you start, at the top of your head and just kind of go around your body, every little postage stamp size, and just notice what's here. Okay, tingly. Okay, great. Next, what's
Yeah.
here? Okay, itchy. Okay, what's here? This. And you notice the sensations on the body. If you sit still without reacting,
Mm.
you start to lengthen the time between your like, you start to slow down your reactivity.
Yeah.
You start to being able to be okay with what's here without needing to change it. And what happens eventually, hopefully, is that you start to be able to quiet down those thoughts of judgment, because you become comfortable in just being with what is, and those thoughts quiet. And so that is a pretty profound thing that has ripples in our lives. Something very shocking happens, and you're able to be with it without being reactive. You can react quickly, but you don't need to be reactive, which is to rush into all of the thinking that things are worse than they are, or how they could be worse, or what could possibly have. It's like a clearer focus in the way that we live our lives, and it also opens ultimately to a wide compassion, because when we're not reactive, we're listening a little more closely to how people are speaking, what people are saying, um, and what might be behind what they're saying. I think when we're real reactive, we automatically assume that somebody is mean something, dependent on our past. If we have space and time before we get into those reactions, we can actually open our hearts and listen, which I think really is, at the end of the day, the purpose of all spiritual practice is to open our hearts to real acceptance of where somebody is then now, without needing to change them, and with an opening to trying to understand. Um, so that's what I'd say about Vipassana. Yeah, the website for Vipassana is Dhamma, and I highly recommend that organization to anybody. It's been a great gift in my life. Yeah.
Wow, that's really lovely. Thank you for sharing this. Um,
Mhm.
so again, definitely, it's a learning for all of us. So, dear listeners, I believe you are resonating with the discussions and the experiences shared by our guests. So, for quickly, I'll go to Sally. Like, what according to you are some of the effective strategies for maintaining a mental and the emotional resilience in the face of life's challenges?
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
think I loved what Clementine shared about Vipassana as well. I haven't actually done one. I have a cousin she's done many 10 days and a 30-day sit as well. And I think creating that pause between the reaction time is really important. And one of the things that I learned across my studies and everything else is that the subconscious reacts 5 seconds faster than what we can consciously think. And I've certainly been in those situations where something's coming out of my mouth and it's like, oh, back up, but it's already happened. It's already out. And one of the greatest gifts was like just breathing for 5 seconds before responding. And it gave myself enough time to ask a better quality question. And I think that the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves really can impact like how we're actually feeling emotionally as well. And so in that moment, and that was generally in relationship with my kids, and it would be like, how would love respond? And
Mhm.
that really became such a powerful filter for me to be able to take a step back. I'm also a huge advocate of the Byron Katie work, and it can be found at just literally thework.com. But basically, the work of Byron Katie is questioning and challenging our beliefs and thoughts. And I think that is so incredibly important. And because we tend to believe our thoughts, unfortunately, some of the time, depending if they're disempowering thoughts. But really being able to challenge and understand that all of these thoughts were once pro-survival, meaning they were trying to help me in my life, even our most critical ones or our inner critic ones. And so when we can understand that, it's really embracing that as opposed to like pushing our inner critic away or judging it or making it wrong, which is really just another part of the ego trying to judge the ego and make it wrong. And so I found really challenging my thoughts and asking myself, how do I feel when I believe this thought? Because when the body realizes it's no longer pro-survival, meaning it's actually causing me pain by believing this thought or having this thought, then the mind is so much more willing to let it go. It's kind of like picking up a hot coal out of the fire. We let it go in the second second that we realize it's actually burning us or it's hurting us. And so the mind is activated that way, and we can access the subconscious through our feeling state. So we need to go into that feeling. How does it really feel? And quite often when I've done that process, it's brought me to tears, and I can really feel the pain and who I become when I believe that thought. And then how do I feel, or who do I become without that thought? And it's just like instant relief, instant dropping back into the heart center, opening in the chest area, like just the expansion that comes through, the love that was Clementine was talking about as well. It's just that expansive, I'm back home again, or just a feeling of relief within the body is really amazing. And lastly, one of the biggest factors that really impact our mental resilience, I believe, is how we actually treat the physical body. I know for sure, and certainly after working with so many people over the years, when we're compromised within our physical body, that is when our inner critic becomes super, super, super loud. Because it's almost like if a deer's injured in the woods, it's not just going to be sitting there chilling, going, oh, it's such a lovely day today. It's going to be hyper vigilant to everything that could harm it or hurt it. And our mind is exactly the same. So the more compromised we become in our physical well-being through the foods that we eat, through not sleeping well, through our busy lifestyle, through constantly pushing ourselves, all of those factors culminate in absolutely impacting our mental health, which then obviously impacts our emotional health as well. So taking really good care of our physical body, I believe, is one of the greatest things that we can do for our mental well-being. And it's why I take such a holistic approach when I'm working with people, because every single thing impacts, whether it be mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. When we lose that connection with ourselves, when we're not being true to ourselves, or we're being a people pleaser, we're abandoning ourselves essentially, which isn't going to make us feel good about ourselves, lowering our self-worth, which keeps exacerbating that cycle of overgiving to try and get external validation for who we are. So there's so many different factors, I think, that go into it, but definitely, you know, if we get great sleep, that's a really good start to improving our mental well-being. And if we're feeling challenged around sleeping and things like that, like there's so many free resources available now on YouTube, and I've definitely got some free resources on my site as well around sleeping and healing burnout and all of those things. So I think it can really make such a difference to reduce inflammation in the body, take good care, and be mindful and aware, because awareness is 90% of the game. We can't change something that we're not aware of. And if we've always done it, it can kind of be like a fish living in water. It doesn't know what it's like without that. So that's where it can be helpful working with somebody that you really resonate with as well.
Lovely, lovely. That's really really great. So with this, definitely we are at the end of this podcast episode, and I believe like we have learned a lot today from our lovely guests. And thank you so much for joining us on this enlightening episodes of Healthy Waves. And dear listeners, like we hope that our discussion on rebuilding the resilience, mindfulness, the power of spiritual practice has definitely inspired you. So for this, definitely a big thank you to our guest Clementine and Sally for sharing your valuable insights and the experiences with all of us. And for the listeners, I would love to mention, like, always remember that resilience is about thriving amidst the challenges. And these expert discussions have definitely provided us with the tools to do just that. Uh, so until next time, stay healthy, keep riding those healthy waves. So thank you so much.
Thank you.